Here's the card, buy whatever you want. There's $5 million on it. Mom's voice rang through the dining room, sweet but performative. My brother smirked, flipping the platinum card between his fingers as if it were his birthright. My name is Haley Brooks, I'm 29. And if you think family means trust, you've never met mine. How do you keep loving people who see your generosity as permission? I smiled politely, hiding the sting in my chest. Because that card, the one she just handed him, was mine. My salary card. My money. Months of work and contracts and long nights they never asked about. They told me it was family pooling. I believed them at first until I noticed transfers I didn't make. So I kept silent. Maybe if I kept giving they'd finally see me as more than their safety net. But when Mom and my brother rushed to the dealership that afternoon, laughing about finally buying something nice for themselves, I decided to follow. I parked across the street, heart thudding, and watched them parade through the glass doors like royalty. Mom adjusted her pearls. My brother handed over my card to the salesman with a confident grin. I knew exactly what would happen next. The salesman slid the card into the terminal. A beat passed. Then his brow furrowed. Wait, this is... The screen flashed account frozen. Suspicious activity. Mom's smile faltered. What do you mean suspicious? She snapped. The salesman turned the card toward her. This account's owner reported fraudulent access this morning. My brother blinked, color draining from his face. Fraudulent? That's our money. And that's when I stepped through the showroom doors. Correction, I said quietly. It's my money. Their world stopped, right there between the polished cars and my silence. For a moment the dealership went silent. No music, no chatter, just the sound of my mother's shaky breath. Her face twisted between disbelief and fury. You froze the account? She hissed. How could you do this to family? I took a slow step closer. Funny, that's exactly what I was asking when family drained my savings without permission. The salesman excused himself politely, pretending to check paperwork, clearly sensing the emotional minefield in front of him. My brother looked at me, eyes narrowing. You're overreacting. We were just borrowing. Mom said you wouldn't mind. Borrowing requires asking, I replied evenly. And I stopped being your ATM the moment you called me selfish for working overtime. My mother's voice sharpened. We raised you. We gave you everything. No, I said, my tone cutting through her lie. You gave me guilt. I gave you everything. Her lips parted, but I didn't let her speak again. I reached into my bag and placed a thin folder on the sales desk. Inside are signed statements from my bank, the wire transfers you approved, and screenshots of every transaction tied to your number. Fraud Division has them too. My brother's jaw locked. You wouldn't. I already did. He glanced toward Mom, panic crawling up his neck. You froze the card before we even got here. You planned this. Planned. I smiled faintly. No. I learned. From you. I turned, ready to leave, when Mom muttered behind me, we were trying to help you learn responsibility. I stopped, looking back at her reflection in the showroom glass. Pale, defensive, cornered. Congratulations, I said softly. Lesson learned. Outside, sunlight hit the glass, blinding and warm. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. The call came that evening. 10 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 1 text from my brother that said only, "You're dead to us." It didn't sting the way I expected. Instead, it felt like oxygen. Like space finally cleared for peace to grow. My name still flashed on their family group chat as Haley $. I'd left that group months ago, but apparently they never noticed until the money stopped flowing. Finn, my business partner and the only person who really knew the full story, raised an eyebrow when I told him what happened. You sure you're okay? I'm done being their insurance policy, I said, pouring 2 cups of coffee. They made their choices. I just stopped funding them. He smirked. Bet they won't like that. They already don't. By morning, Mom had posted a cryptic Facebook rant about ungrateful daughters who forget their roots. My aunt shared it with a comment that said, sad when money changes people. I almost laughed, because money didn't change me. Boundaries did. That afternoon, my accountant confirmed what I already suspected. My family had funneled over $180,000 in family expenses from my joint account over the past year. New furniture, jewelry, a vacation to Hawaii. All under my name. Do you want to press charges? He asked carefully. I stared at the report, my own mother's signature beside unauthorized withdrawals, and shook my head. No. I just want them to live without me for once. Ethan leaned on my desk later that day reading over the numbers. You're reclaiming your story, Haley. That's power. Maybe, I whispered, but power feels lonely at first. That night my phone buzzed again. A new message from Mom. We need to talk. Come home. I didn't reply, because for the first time home didn't mean them anymore. 2 days later Mom showed up at my office unannounced. Security called ahead. There's a woman demanding to see you. Says she's your mother. I almost said no. But curiosity won. She arrived in her usual pearl earrings, clutching her purse like a weapon. Haley, she began, voice trembling but still trying for control. You've embarrassed us. Your brother couldn't even buy a car because of you. I noticed, I said, leaning against my desk. That was the point. Her jaw clenched. You froze your own family's access. I froze thieves' access, I corrected calmly. She inhaled sharply as if my composure offended her more than my words. We were going to pay it back, she insisted. You've changed, Haley. You used to be kind. I tilted my head. Kindness isn't the same as letting people rob you. Her tears came then, dramatic practice, the kind that always worked when I was younger. You think money gives you the right to judge us? We built you. No, Mom, I said quietly. You built excuses. I built my life. She stood there, shaking her head, disbelief turning to anger. You'll regret this when you're alone. I smiled faintly. Funny. I've never felt more surrounded by people who actually show up. The silence between us stretched thin. Finally, she whispered, your father's furious. He says you're out of the will. Perfect, I said. Then we're finally even. She left without another word. The elevator doors closed with a satisfying click. Ethan peeked in seconds later holding 2 coffees. Was that the storm? Just the aftershock, I said, exhaling. The real quake's still coming. Because I knew my father wouldn't take losing control quietly, not after being exposed. By the weekend the real quake hit. Dad's lawyer called first. A cold, measured voice informing me that my parents intended to rectify a financial misunderstanding. Translation: they wanted my frozen accounts unlocked. Then came the second blow. A notice from the property office. My father had tried to file a transfer of ownership for my apartment, claiming it as a family asset purchased with parental support. I stared at the document in disbelief, then laughed out loud. They weren't just greedy, they were desperate. Ethan sat across the table as I explained, his expression unreadable. They actually forged the purchase date, I said. It's dated 2 years before I even had a job. Classic narcissistic panic move, he replied. You need to respond legally, not emotionally. He was right. So I called my attorney, the same woman who helped me set up my company's trust fund. Within hours she filed a counterclaim, documented proof of income, title deed, and every tax statement since purchase. By Monday morning my father's claim had been officially rejected. That's when the text came. You've shamed this family, Haley. You'll regret crossing us. For years I would have cried over those words. But now, they barely registered. I took a screenshot and forwarded it to my attorney, adding one line. Please include this in the harassment record. Ethan looked up from his laptop that night. They'll push harder before they give up. I know, I said, looking out at the Portland skyline. But they're not fighting me, they're fighting the mirror I held up. He smiled softly. Then let them see what they made. And for the first time I didn't dread what would come next, because I had proof, peace, and power on my side. Monday morning I arrived at work to find 2 reporters waiting in the lobby. One from the Portland Ledger, the other from a small online outlet. They'd heard rumors about a family dispute involving fraud and inheritance. Classic dad. If he couldn't win privately, he'd spin the story publicly. I smiled, told the reporters, no comment, and went straight upstairs. By noon, my PR manager had already drafted a statement. All personal financial matters concerning Ms. Brooks are private and fully documented with legal counsel. Her philanthropic work through the Women in Tech Fund continues as planned. It wasn't just a defense, it was a message. I wasn't going to play in their mud pit. Ethan dropped by my office an hour later. You handled that like a pro, he said. Public lies are easier to manage than private manipulation, I replied, sipping my coffee. That night Mom called again. Her voice was quieter this time. Haley, your father's health isn't good. Can't you just let this go? There it was, the emotional blackmail I'd memorized since childhood. I hesitated for a heartbeat, then said, if Dad wants peace, he can start by apologizing. Not performing. Silence. Then the line went dead. 2 days later, the Ledger published the article. Not the one my father expected, but one titled, Self-Made Tech Founder Accused by Family, but Legal Evidence Proves Otherwise. The public's sympathy flooded in instantly. Emails from investors, followers, even women I'd mentored. Proud of you for standing up. Thanks for showing what real boundaries look like. Ethan texted later that night. Redemption by receipts. Perfect headline. I laughed for the first time in days. It was strange how truth didn't need defending. It just needed exposure. And my father had handed me the stage himself. A week later, the fallout began. Dad's law firm quietly withdrew their claim. The forged documents had raised internal alarms. Rumors spread fast, whispers of misrepresentation and ethics review. For a man who worshipped reputation, humiliation was the one currency he couldn't afford to lose. Mom called again that night. This time there was no anger in her voice, just weariness. Your father can't sleep. He says he just wanted to protect the family name. I almost laughed. Mom, you don't protect a family name by destroying your daughters. She sighed. You've always been stubborn. I learned from the best, I said quietly. There was a pause, then, your brother moved back in with us. He says it's temporary. Of course he does, I murmured. Parasites don't call it feeding, they call it family. Haley. Mom, I interrupted softly, you don't have to cover for them anymore. The next morning, the Women in Tech Fund received a $250,000 anonymous donation. No note. No contact. Just a silent transaction with my father's signature traceable in the routing details. Guilt money, I thought. My attorney confirmed it was legitimate, fully cleared, and could not be reversed. I'll accept it, I said, but under one condition. It goes directly to scholarships for women cut off by their families. That night Ethan poured 2 glasses of wine. Poetic justice, he said. I nodded. Not revenge, alignment. The world had a way of evening things out once you stopped trying to force fairness. For the first time I felt no anger left. Only clarity. And that, more than any victory, was freedom. Spring arrived quietly, like forgiveness I hadn't asked for. The foundation hosted its first public gala that weekend. A sold-out event supporting scholarships for women rebuilding their lives after family fallout. The room shimmered with laughter, music, and stories that felt like pieces of my own past stitched together into something beautiful. I stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces. Women who'd been underestimated, daughters who'd been told to stay small, dreamers who finally had proof they could build again. My name is Haley Brooks, I began, my voice steady. And tonight isn't about who failed to show up for us. It's about the people who chose to. Applause rippled through the crowd like a slow wave. At the edge of the room, I caught a glimpse of something unexpected. Mom standing near the exit, hands clasped tightly in front of her. She didn't wave. She didn't speak. But the look in her eyes, pride, regret, maybe both, lingered long enough for me to know she'd heard every word. Later that night, as I left the venue, I found a small envelope tucked under my car's windshield. Inside, one line written in Mom's familiar cursive. You were always enough. I just couldn't see it. I folded it carefully, not out of sentiment but closure. Because forgiveness, I'd learned, wasn't about letting them back in. It was about letting the weight go. When I got home, Ethan was waiting with 2 mugs of tea. He looked at me, smiling softly. So, how does it feel? I exhaled, the night air warm on my skin. Like I finally locked the right doors. The camera flashes, the applause, the signatures. All of it faded. What remained was peace, quiet, steady, earned. The girl who once begged to be seen was now the woman building light for others. And no one, not even family, could dim that again.